Hi, everybody, and welcome to The Science of Spirit. This is your host, JANICE VOELKER, and today I'd like to discuss channeling and the use of neuromuscular response, also known as NMR, or muscle testing. Now, I was taught in hypnosis school to use NMR with clients, and you generally would ask yes or no questions of their higher self, or their subconscious or body, to get to the root cause of any number of conditions or ailments. Muscle testing can be done with either two people, or you can just do self-muscle testing as well. Now, the self-muscle testing, you can do it with a finger or the use of a pendulum. And most people have seen the muscle testing that's done with two people, either using an arm and the person is told to resist as a question is asked, and then if the answer is no to a question, the arm gives way. But if it's strong, then the answer is yes. Well, you can do that same thing using the legs, which is actually easier in a lot of ways because you don't get as tired. And this way, if a client comes in, you can test to see if they have a spirit attachment, which is really important because if you regress them or put them under in a trance state, oftentimes it can be the spirit attachment that comes through and not the person's higher self or body or whoever it is you think you're talking to. So anyway, I use self-muscle testing with a pendulum every time I do a channeling session afterwards to check to see if I did have a spirit attachment, just in case. I haven't had one yet. I can usually tell if I do. But then I just kind of go page by page with the information I've written down, asking yes or no, is this correct? So that's kind of how I double check my work. Now, most people don't really realize that muscle testing is really kind of an art. It takes a while to really learn how to do it properly. Because whatever it is that you are thinking at the time you're doing the muscle testing is going to affect your result. In other words, if you are doing self-muscle testing, let's say with a pendulum, and it's just, asking yes or no questions, you have to remain focused on whatever question it is you're asking, or you can ask the question and then completely blank your mind. Now, I do both equally well. It doesn't seem to matter. But a lot of people don't seem to be able to blank their mind. So the thing is, you just have to focus on the question and remain focused on it, either seeing it like ticker tape. Some people do that to remain focused so they actually see the words, that kind of a thing. But if you're doing it with another person, now you've got two people who have to keep their mind focused. So the client needs to focus on the question that they are asking, and the hypnotist needs to keep their mind blank. Otherwise, you'll get all kinds of squirrely answers, and the information won't be valid. I know a lot of people will do this as kind of a parlor trick sometimes, and the information will turn out okay. But no, if you're really going to use it properly, where you want to rely on the results, you need to take those things into consideration. One other thing that can come up when you're doing with self-muscle testing, especially with self-muscle testing, will be somehow your polarity changes, and you'll get the opposite answers. And I'm not real sure what causes that. It has something to do with your energy field, and I think it has something to do with if you've been upset or very emotional about something. Because when I was first starting out, I would have that happen from time to time. And one way to correct it is tap around the thymus area, and it seems to recalibrate whatever it is that's going on. So that I'm not real sure exactly what's going on. But it can also happen when two people are doing it, so you have to do the same thing. So it's kind of interesting. And with muscle testing, how you phrase a question can really make a difference. For example, when I'm using self-muscle testing with the pendulum, I will start off asking questions that I know the answers to. I will say something like, my higher self knows my name is Janice. See what I get. My higher self knows I'm wearing a pair of socks. See what I get. So I'll ask 2 or 3 questions like that before I then start asking questions that I don't know the answer to. That way, it's also kind of checking to see if you're calibrated okay or if your polarity has changed. So if you think you want to try doing self-NMR with a pendulum, basically it's pretty easy, but it does take a little practice. So first of all, you need to get the pendulum. And you can do this in any number of ways. This is just something I did and I liked it. So I got a piece of paper and I drew a half of a circle and then split that down the middle. So you could just set it in front of you, and the left-hand side would be a no answer, the right-hand side would be a yes answer, and down the middle would be a maybe, or you ask the question weird. So you basically hold the pendulum over that and then ask your question. Now, what I usually do is I've got my eyes closed because I really try not to influence stuff. And then I'll ask my question, such as, my higher self knows I have blue eyes. And I will remain focused on that. And you can say that mentally over and over if that helps. And I wait for a little bit, and then I'll look and see which way the pendulum is actually going. So I will ask those test questions first, and then move off into something that I don't know about. But this is a great way to practice. So if those questions, those initial questions that you know the answers to, you're not getting the right answers, and it's opposite, that's where you need to tap your thymus. And what you do there is the thymus is located right around, like at the base of your neck, kind of where that little gully is in your neck. And if you're going to tap it, you would take your right hand, put it over the right side, and tap in a circular motion, starting, like at the base of the neck and then going down and around. And just do that a few times, and it should recalibrate, and you should be able to then ask those same questions again and get the correct answer. Now, as far as doing muscle testing with fingers, that is not my forte. I have tried it, and I just don't feel like I can get it where it's reliable. But those people who do, it's kind of cool because it's something that you always have with you, whereas with the pendulum, not so much. A couple I know went to a fair together, and then they went their separate ways when they got there, apparently. So she used finger muscle testing to find her way over to where he was at. So she just asked yes or no questions. Is he to the right? Is he to the left? Is he forward? And actually found him that way. So I thought that was kind of a cool example of something you can do with self-muscle testing. Now, getting back to asking questions or actually making statements, because you're only going to get yes or no answers, so you always have to do it in the form of a statement. So I'll try to explain a little bit better about how to make a proper statement to get the best yes or no answer. So if you want to find out something that you consciously think versus something that is possibly in your subconscious, which there can definitely be a difference. So if you wanted to ask something of your conscious mind, you could state it something like, I consciously think. I consciously think that I am a loved person. Versus if you want to ask something of your subconscious, then you can state it, my subconscious believes. My subconscious believes that I am worthy of love. And then if you want to ask your higher self something, it would be stated, my higher self knows that I am worthy of love. Now you can also ask questions of your body, and you would simply phrase it, my body does well with the amount of sugar I eat. Or the cells of my heart, that's how you would phrase those type of things. So you can get different answers depending on who was asked the question. For example, you can ask, you might think that consciously you're fine with going out in the sun for an hour, no problem. So you might ask your conscious mind, I consciously think it's fine for me and healthy for me to be out in the sun for an hour. Then you could ask your subconscious mind, and you could say, my subconscious believes that it's fine for me to be out in the sun for an hour every day. And, see what you get. See if there's a discrepancy there. Because if there is, then that means you've got some subconscious programming that believes differently. So then you can ask your higher self and state, my higher self knows that it's healthy for me to be in the sun for an hour every day, and see what you get there. You probably will get a yes. But, but that could vary, maybe depending on completely on your circumstances. Maybe there is some reason in some part of the world that it wouldn't be a good idea to be out in the sun. I don't know. But you at least get the gist of how that works. Now, I do want to say something about if you start asking questions regarding things that are, abuse or trauma that you may have had in the past, it could bring up things that you may or may not be prepared to deal with on your own. So unless you have access to a good hypnotherapist or therapy in some way, I don't recommend getting into that. So you can really find out quite a bit on your own through doing the self-NMR. But anything that's like a major life decision, that kind of stuff, it's still best to have someone who knows what they're doing to go ahead and confirm that, because I don't really think self-NMR is quite as accurate as doing it with someone who is a professional and has been properly trained in the use of NMR. But at the same time, if you do have someone that you can go to, a therapist, then it's a great way to kind of test your own skills and see how well you're doing, and then go ahead and compare with what you get when you're working with the therapist. And if you do go to a practitioner for NMR, you'd be amazed at the things you can find out about. You can find out whether things started in this life, or perhaps something or a memory started in a past life. You can find out about spirit guides. Is a guide that you have really guiding you? Is it to your highest good? You can ask your higher self, all that kind of thing. And of course, you can get to the basis of pretty much any ailment that you would have by going through and finding out whether it started in the physical, whether it was in a past life, which would be more of a spiritual thing, or whether it's a subconscious belief. And then armed with that information, you can make steps to alleviating the condition. I hope I gave a decent enough explanation of how to use neuromuscular response, because it can really be a handy tool to have. So once again, this is Janice with The Science of Spirit. I hope you have a great week. Thank you for listening.